My name is Dina Yaka and I am the Community Engagement Director and the coordinator of our National Ambassadors Program and our face-to-face program. Before we begin, I would like to do an acknowledgement of country. I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, of elders past and present, on which this event takes place. Just some housekeeping rules before we kick off the evening tonight. Please place yourselves on mute if possible. And please, of course, feel free to put your cameras on or off. This webinar will be recorded and will be accessed by other members who are part of the RCOA family. So if you do not wish to be identified, please keep your cameras off. Before I kick off and hand over to Abang. We are really lucky tonight to have Abang join us with this webinar. As you may be aware, you've probably seen a little bit of Abang's face, you know, all throughout our social media posts, and Abang has really played a great role in promoting and amplifying the voices of refugees and people with lived experience. For me personally, it has been an absolute honour to have her as part of our program. As you may aware or may know about our program, the program was established in 2014, and the aim of the program was to amplify the voices of people with lived experience, but most importantly, address the misconceptions that the wider Australian public had about refugees and people seeking asylum. So the program and the idea behind the program was to empower people like Abang and other refugees and people seeking asylum in Australia, empower them, provide them with training, and most importantly, provide them with opportunities and the platform to share their stories at first hand. Too many times we were hearing stories about refugees and people seeking asylum from others that were not representing those communities, and our aim was to ensure that the voices of refugees were heard and delivered by refugees themselves. And therefore we have worked for the past 8 years and have, I think, done a fantastic job in recognizing and ensuring that we are empowering individuals who are part of our story, the story of ensuring that refugees are actually not misrepresented in all aspects of Australian public life, but also given the opportunity and the platform to represent on their behalf. So without further ado, I want to hand over to Abang. I don't want to give too much away about, you know, her story and her refugee journey. I want her to take this opportunity and take you on a journey of her personal story of being a refugee and how she became part of our program as well. So thank you so much, and over to you, Abang.
Thank you so much, Dina. I really appreciate the introduction. And I'm really delighted to be here with you all this afternoon to share snippets of my refugee journey and hopefully to be able to answer also some questions. So I will just share my screen. All right, so I'm assuming everyone can see the screen. So yeah, my name is Abang Anade Othow, and I am an educator, an advocate, and currently I'm writing a book as well. So, you know, my refugee journey has been a long and difficult journey. And so from the age of 5 till the age of 18, I have been on the run from one country to another country until arriving to Australia. So I was actually born in war-torn country of Sudan. Before the war, the country was one, and after the war, it has now currently been split to two. It is South Sudan and Sudan. So I was born to a relatively middle-class family. My father was a university professor and my mom worked as a secretary. So my father felt very strongly, he had this strong sense of duty that as an educated man, he needed to contribute to, he had a responsibility and a duty to contribute to supporting and advocating for the marginalized people of Sudan. So he felt that to do this, he had to join politics. And that was the way that he felt that he could make a contribution. So I was born in a place called Juba, which is just right here on the map. And then when my dad was given a job as a minister in the government, he was posted in Khartoum. So we were separated just briefly because my dad had to work there and my mom was still, me and my mom and my siblings were still in Juba. And I became very, very sick with malaria. So my mom took me to where my dad was in Khartoum. And the idea was that I would stay there for maybe a week, and then my mom would come back to get me. Little did I know that that would be the last time I would see my mom as a child. We had to escape the country in a rush because my dad was facing assassination. And in a country such as Sudan, you were accused, of being with the rebels or accused of being with the government, and both sides committed the worst atrocities against their own people. So my father was facing an assassination because of his advocacy for the marginalized people, and also he was also speaking out against the conflict that was going on in the country. And so we escaped to a country called Ethiopia, which is one of the neighboring countries. And in Ethiopia, my father then left again. He left us, me and some relatives, because he had to go and continue the advocacy to advocate to international community to try to get support and mobilize support for the people of Sudan. Unfortunately, while in Ethiopia, another war broke out. So the government of Ethiopia was toppled by another group. And so heavy fighting took over and we had to escape. This time we escaped back into Sudan, not where I was born or not where my mom was. We went to a place called Kopoita. And this place in Kopoita, this was a very strong rebel stronghold. This is where the rebel based themselves. So because of that, we were bombed on a daily basis. In this place, Kopoita, this is where I saw the brutalities of war that nobody should ever have to go through, let alone children. This was a place that I had to grow up very quickly, and I had to build resilience, because and have a strategy of how to cope with the trauma and the war that was going on. And so from that young age, I decided that my purpose was to help people who were in need. And so I helped other young people who were like me, who were orphans, did not have parents with them. And I also had a cousin who had polio. So she was crawling, she was not able to walk. I would help her to get into the bomb shelters. And this is a place that, it was just a matter of, life and death. There was absolutely no security. And it became really terrible because this was a place that I also did not have both of my parents. And so I had to create this strategy to try to remember and hold on to some of the beautiful memories that I could try to hold on. I was not able to hold on to everything, but I remembered just before the intensity of the war, living by the Nile, having a mango tree and living with my mom and my siblings and my grandmother, who I loved and I was fond of. So this helped me. And also I was able to create these imaginary buckets. And this strategy, I did not have a name for it. But at that time, as a young child, I created these imaginary buckets of joy, of safety, and this is where I was able to utilize my mind. And I knew that in the face of war and brutality, I was powerless in that I didn't have any power, but I could utilize my mind. I could keep my mind strong and powerful to be able to survive so that I can help other people. So after living in Kopoita and going through this war, we escaped to another neighboring country. Fortunately, my father looked for us and he came and he found us in Kopoita, and we escaped to another neighboring country called Kenya, which is just here on the map. In Kenya was a country, so from the age of 5 till 11, I was going through the intensity of the war. Then I arrived in Kenya as an 11-year-old, having not gone to school. And for the first time, I was given opportunity to start schooling. And I was absolutely thrilled. I was very, very happy to be able to be given the opportunity to start school. Unfortunately, my father had to then go back. He left us again. He left me in Kenya with some relatives. And I put my hand up for absolutely everything in school. I participated in athletics, in debating, in the academic life of the school, until I was even made school captain in the school, which was called head girl. And this is a place that I really remember fondly because of the education opportunity that I was given. And I did not take it lightly. I knew that I would not use my experiences as an excuse to not try my best. And I knew that the opportunity that I was given, millions of other children did not have that opportunity. So in Kenya, I had to learn the language very quickly, Of course, initially, you get a lot of bullying when you don't know the language and you're new in the country, and and also being an 11-year-old who has never been to school. So I had to learn how to be a student. And I basically, I just wanted to try my level best. And I told my teachers that, anything that you want me to do, I will do it and I will learn. I know that I don't have the foundation, particularly in subjects such as maths that requires you to have foundation. And so I really struggled with that, but I loved languages. And so I participated in learning very quickly. However, this was short-lived, because from 11 years old to the age of 14, I had about 4 years, maybe 3 years of, just a normality that I thought would take shape. However, at the age of 14, my world was shattered again. I lost my father. He, unfortunately, because he went back to continue his advocacy for the people of Sudan, my father was captured and assassinated without trial. And we were not even given the opportunity to see his body until today. So that was a very, very sad moment for me in my life, because I felt like I did not know where my mom was at this point, or where my siblings, or whether they were alive or not. And now I've lost the only person that I knew that could give me some sense of security and protection, and that was my father. So, I then became homeless, and I went to Kakuma refugee camp, which is a very, like in the middle of nowhere, like most refugee camps. usually they're in places that nobody wants to be in semi-desert or desert, in the middle of nowhere. Nevertheless, I was still grateful that I had that opportunity to have even a shelter over my head. Kakuma was also not a place that was pleasant in the sense of people were escaping conflict, and you know, it's quite high intense emotions running, and people were, you know, living in extreme fear and uncertainty. Some people lived there for 10 years. Some people were born there and had no hope and did not know whether they would be relocated or given the opportunity to come to be given the opportunity to go to another country as a refugee. And so there was also conflict within the refugee camp, because different groups also did not get along. So there were different tribes and different dynamics that that created also conflict. And so for me, I knew that I had to keep away, you know, from people and try to be as invisible as possible, so that I don't sort of get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time when conflicts were going on. So in Kakuma refugee camp, fortunately, when I was 17, I was given opportunity again to come to Australia as a refugee. So the process was a very long process. However, and also because I was also underage, it was quite complicated. I had to be put under someone else's form, and it was quite sort of like a complex kind of process that I didn't have much understanding. But I had two of my aunties who advised me and said, look, given that you have absolutely no parents and we can't really look after you, for, you know, we don't know what's going to happen to us. And, you know, and they were right, because then I lost my aunties as well, who then passed away as well. So, you know, I had to listen to them and take the opportunity and accept, you know, whatever opportunity I was being given to come to Australia, and I had no choice. So I had to basically, I was told, this is where you're going to go. And so I arrived in Australia just before my 18th birthday. In Australia, I had big hopes and dreams, and I felt that, you know, I was given a second chance, and this was an opportunity for me to be able to achieve things that I was not able to achieve going through war, losing my parents. So I had goals, and one of my number one goal was to search for my mom and my siblings. At this point, I did not know whether they were alive or not. So I started a very, very long process of searching for my mom. And I went through Red Cross. They had a tracing, program that they were using at that time. Unfortunately, they were not able to track my mom. It was too difficult. I then went through, local organizations, local religious or churches, or, you know, people that may have heard about where my mom was. I had to spend a lot of money, all the money that I earned while I was in Australia, because shortly when I arrived, I was approached by a modeling agency to join fashion. And so I did modeling, and I traveled around Australia and around the world. You know, I was actually quite shocked, because I came from a completely, modeling was a completely foreign, and I was actually just really surprised why I was given that opportunity. But it allowed me to be able to engage with different people, and also it allowed me to be able to search for my mom, and to use, strategies of talking and communicating with different people. So finally, I was able to track down my mom. She was in a refugee camp in Sudan, and I found my mom and brought them via Egypt, because there was no way of bringing family directly from their country of origin. Quite often, a lot of refugees have to go through other countries. So I was able to bring my mom to Egypt. My mom, my siblings, you know, my older brother and his kids. I was able to sponsor 10 family members and bring them to Australia. So when, you know, when my mom arrived, she had absolutely she forgot what even I looked like. She could not recognize me. The only way she recognized me was through a birthmark that I have in my hand. And I also had somehow blocked what my mom looked like. And what the memory of the person that I had that I thought was my mom was actually my grandmother, because when I asked my mom, I said, but you looked different when I tried to remember you from when I was 5 years old. And my mom said, you know, Abang, like the person that you're describing is your grandmother. You obviously remember her and you don't remember me. And so, you know, it was quite a teary reunion, because from the age of 5 till the age of 22, so 17 years of separation, basically my entire childhood, not having a mother, and then having lost my dad at the age of 14. And I also had to learn who my siblings were, because I completely had no memories of them. They also did not have memories of who I was. And so I had to learn about them as individuals, and that was not easy. And also when I brought my mom to Australia, the same year, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So essentially, she would not have made it if she was still at the refugee camp, because there was no diagnosis, there was no medical resources or medical treatment. And therefore she said to me, it's just remarkable how, you know, the same year that I brought her, that's when she was diagnosed with cancer. And so we then had to go through another roller coaster of, you know, emotion of, will I now lose my mom that I just actually brought her in the country? Will I have enough time with her? You know, is this just another trick that I will see my mom and then she will pass away? And so luckily, fortunately, my mom did survive cancer. She went through the treatments. And, you know, my mom is now 67 as I speak. And I am just so proud of her, because she wanted to prove, she said to me, I want to go and study and gain a university degree. And I said to her, Mom, why would you want to do that? Just relax and enjoy yourself. You don't need to stress yourself out, because, you know, I was going through the process of, you know, of going through the university, acquiring higher education. But my mom said to me, I need to prove this to myself, even if I die tomorrow, to know that I have studied, and that in my, you know, bibliography, this can be read that I actually went to university. And she did. She went and studied, and she finally graduated, even though she doesn't have a job, but she's very proud, and I'm proud of her. Now, for me, I knew that in order for me to make a difference, and in order for me to have a platform to be able to communicate with people and to really help other people who've gone through maybe similar journeys, or maybe even, you know, mainstream young people, I knew that I needed to go back to study. And through education, it is a way for me to be able to transform not only my life, but other people's lives. And so I embarked on this journey of higher education. And it was not an easy journey, because at this point, I had only acquired 6 years of formal education prior to arriving in Australia. And so I went to the university and I spoke to them, and they said it is impossible. It is impossible with 6 years of schooling and not even having completed high school to be able to just, come and embark in getting a university degree. But I was determined. I was determined to prove to myself and to prove to other young people that you can do it, just, with some grit. There's pathways out there. So I went to TAFE, I learned the language, and that gave me the opportunity, to be accepted at university. I did some short courses in TAFE, and then after that, I went and did a bridging course in university. Finally, I was accepted at the University of New South Wales, where I did a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in English and Development. And then I started working in a mentoring program with the Department of Education, mentoring young people who have come from refugee programs. And I ran that program for a few years, and then I went on and studied my Master's of Teaching. And then I embarked on my journey of teaching, which I have been doing for the past 10 years. So I have taught, mainstream students in Australia, Indigenous students, students from refugee backgrounds, and I just found it to be quite transformational, because I was able to use all the resilience that I've built over the years and my commitment and passion in imparting knowledge to young people. And so now, as I'm transitioning, out of teaching and, writing my book, it's just giving me this, opportunity to be able to reflect and to be able to give back and perhaps maybe inspire other young people or people who've come from lived refugee experiences, to also be part of the dialogue. And it has been a very challenging journey, but nevertheless, I've just really embraced it. And now, as a national ambassador for Refugee Council of Australia, the face-to-face program is just a fantastic opportunity that allows people with lived experience to be engaged and to, that we're not just victims of war, and we're not, where we are part of the solution, and we can be part of the dialogue, and we can contribute in positive ways in Australian community. We can be teachers, we can be doctors, we can be lawyers, and we can be just, ordinary workers as well, and contributing to the society, the beautiful multicultural society that Australia is. And this has been a really wonderful opportunity that I have been given, and I feel quite humbled by this opportunity to be able to advocate and to ensure that people's voices are heard, and knowing that there are so many communities that are still, their voices are still not heard, because within the minority groups, there are people who are still marginalized, who are out there, who still have not been given the opportunity to be able to be part of the society that Australia is. So I am very, very delighted this afternoon to share these little snippets of my journey. And it has been a long day for me, but I'm really happy that I'm actually here. And what I tell my son, because I'm also a mother, I've raised my son for the past 13 years, and I remind him that it's very important that we give back and we contribute and we not take the opportunities that we've been given for granted. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, or if you want any clarifications, I'm happy to stay and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abang, for your wonderful, wonderful story. I never get sick of hearing your story, although I've heard it a few times. And I just wanted to take this opportunity and express my sincerest gratitude for you, for being so honest and so, selfless in sharing so much about your journey and your story. And we really, really appreciate it. Just to let you know that just 2 weeks ago, a group of our speakers and our ambassadors were invited to a school that hosted 12 presentations in one day for around 1,200 students. So these stories, Abang's story is one of millions, but often these stories, when they're heard at first hand, they do really have a really, really different impact in terms of what that impact has, and getting to hear that story firsthand makes a big difference. And we've seen the shift in attitudes. We've seen the shift in the attitude of young people when they are sitting in their classrooms or at their schools, when they do get to meet a refugee person, in person, live, get to ask the questions, have the opportunity to engage. Is something that we've really, really enjoyed doing throughout the years. So since just quickly, just some stats, and then we can open the floor for some questions for Abang. Since the establishment of the program, we have delivered over 430 presentations across Australia. So that has been in person, but also due to the restrictions we had during the pandemic. So webinars and Zoom meetings became an essential part of our program, although it doesn't give you the exact same experience when you're meeting someone in person, but we did manage to continue our program and train speakers throughout the pandemic. And we have trained around 110 speakers across Australia for the face-to-face program. So ambassadors have come in and out of our program. We've been able to work with them, empower them, build their skills. We all know that their contributions are countless to this country, to our community and our society. And many of our speakers have been able to move on to other things. I think the face-to-face program has been a stepping stone in gaining their local work experience, in some cases in establishing, establishing their networks, connecting with the wider community, and being able to build up their presentation skills. And of course, most importantly, being able to be given a platform where they can share their stories and their journeys, which, are absolutely fantastic and just a pleasure to hear day in, day out. So we will hand over if there is anyone that would like to ask a question. We can, as we said, we can utilize the chat option, or I think I have a feeling
there's some questions on the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will go through the chats and read out the questions, Abang, and then maybe over to you if you can answer those questions. That would be fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, happy to.
Excellent. All right. So everyone's saying, well done, Abang, a fantastic presentations, and thank you for sharing your story. So question, there's a question that says, Abang, what has been your experience in Australia as you interacted with the wider community? Has it been positive? Have there been instances of bad treatment or indifferences?
My experiences in Australia, I must say, on a personal level, I have met wonderful, wonderful people who are just, really happy to engage with me. However, there has been challenges as well. Just in, one of the biggest challenge was just trying to undertake, or the higher education system, or trying to, embark, trying to find out like the convoluted language that is out there. And it's just very, very difficult for people who've come from refugee backgrounds who are just trying to find answers for simple things like, trying to enroll, trying to register, and, and so I've met amazing people who want to bring change, and of course, sometimes you meet also people who are not willing to support, or who are, prejudiced or have ignorant views because of their, maybe ignorance and things like that. And I must say, my experience in Australia, I would say mostly very positive, but there's a lot of work to be done to make the system a little bit accessible for all people, particularly people who are coming from trauma backgrounds, to be able to access, opportunities, not just, because, not everyone is just seeking handout of, like the Centrelink support or something that, that it is important to get, but to actually have real opportunities of, having an education, having a quality education in a rich country like Australia, and to be able to actually contribute, to get a job, or, to be able to be in business, or to write a book, or to, to get out there. And as you say, Dina, just be given that platform. And which is why I do what I do, because I believe that together we can collaborate and make change, and we can change the dynamic, because we have to be the change that we want to see in the world. We cannot expect someone else to give you the change and to transform your life. We have to be the initiators of change.
Absolutely, of course, absolutely. Abang, another quick question saying, so what should you at times when you felt you needed support, and did you have any refugee friends to give you the encouragement needed?
Yeah, so initially when I first came to Australia, I was provided support by a charity organization, St. Vincent's de Paul, gave me accommodation in the shelter. So that was very, very supportive. And, I didn't even know that I had something wrong with me. I thought everything was perfect. I've now arrived in Australia. I'm literally a Superman, and I can do anything that I want. But then I quickly realized that there's restraints, there's bills that you have to pay, and and just surviving. And I didn't realize also the toll of trauma and how this is all linked. And so I had to seek help as well. And and I contacted organizations like STARTS, and through the help of these St. Vincent's de Paul, they were able to refer me, and things that were really, really practical, but very, very important in my well-being and development in Australia. And so I certainly don't take that for granted. And things that that I didn't know, like things like autoimmune condition that that I had. I went to the doctor and they said, oh, like you need to go to the hospital today. And I was like, why? I'm very, as you can see, I'm very well, and there's nothing wrong with me. And they're like, oh, no, you need to go to the hospital because your levels are not right, and something, you need to actually be hospitalized. So things like that came as a shock for me. And so transitioning from being on like survival mode to a life of, normality, I did not realize that's when I began to feel absolutely every single emotion, every single pain, every single suffering, everything I felt in Australia, which is it's scary to say, because when I was going through that moment, I had to use every single ounce of my brain, my body, just to survive. And being in Australia for the first time, I was able to then just relax, and then I was then able to see what was wrong. And it takes time. It takes time, and I still think that I have a long way to go. and I am still constantly working on myself, which is what I tell my students. We don't just, you don't just say that I've learned. Nobody has ever learned. We always continue to revolve, and learning is dynamic. So we keep changing, we keep learning every day. And I challenge them to go out there and learn every single day, learn something new and give back.
Absolutely. Thank you, Abang, for that. So just to add to what Abang was saying, that, I think what we get out of, the conversation when, around the time of resettlement is how imperative those services are for the settlement journey of all the refugees that arrive in Australia. And of course, part of our work is to ensure that through our policy work, our community engagement work, we need to be raising awareness about the need for better access to a lot of refugees, specifically people seeking asylum in Australia today, who unfortunately do not get these settlement services that are often provided for people that arrive, on the right visa subclass. So our work is actually about, ensuring that the continuous dialogues that are happening with governments, with policymakers, and they have to happen at, grassroots, and move up to governments to ensure that the policies that we are part of need to be inclusive of all refugees that are seeking protection in our country. So without further ado, of course, I would like to, of course, on behalf of Paul Power, Adama, Kamara, the Refugee Council Board, and all the staff members, wish to extend the huge thank you for all of your commitments and support during 2022. It has definitely been a challenging year for many, and not least for those seeking safety in Australia and throughout the world. As mentioned before, our work representing our members across policy advocacy, campaigns, education and awareness raising is very much informed by the voices of lived experience. And I think Abang did an incredible job today by showcasing why it is so important to centre the voices of people with lived experience in all the work that we do. To all of you, I extend the biggest thank you for joining us tonight and all that you do to support the work of the Refugee Council of Australia. We are so grateful for all that you give, whether that is, in words or acknowledgement, and even support, sharing your feedback on what is important to you. And of course, your financial support is greatly appreciated. We know that Abang's story is one of the millions of stories around the world. You would all probably have received a Christmas appeal pack by now with more information about Abang and our other refugee ambassadors. If you have any further questions about the program, or we would only be too happy to inform you or respond to your questions.
Sometimes. Not regularly.
Yeah. And of course, we would like, if you need to know more about, information about the program, or even if there are questions that we didn't go around to answering, our lovely colleague Georgie will be following up on all the questions that were asked. And we really, really thank you for making yourselves available on an evening of the 15th of December. And we wish you all a safe and happy new year. And thank you so much for being part of this fantastic event. And we look forward to seeing more of you, hopefully in person, and getting to have more conversations and continue these really, really important conversations.
Thank you so much. I think there was just a last question from Harold.
Sure.
Just asking what, course my mom did. She did a Bachelor of Human Services. Thank you so much for your lovely comments. I'm really, humbled by it. Very kind.
Of course, there's more comments, saying, thank you so much for you sharing your incredible story. And they love about it, and they love the fact that, you spoke about your extended transitional experience as a refugee. So thank you, Abang, for tonight, and we really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to having more of these sessions and getting to hear more from our ambassadors as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We did really well. We're on time, early as well. Fantastic. We'll stay on anyway. If anyone else wants to have a chat, we'll be here till 6:30. So if anyone wants to have a chat, get your camera.